Hey guys, my name's Nico, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to actually sell a charter experience and how to have people giving you hundreds and even thousands of dollars up front with no questions asked, and they're going to do it with absolute certainty for an experience they've yet to experience because you understand how to get to the root cause of what it is they're actually looking for and ultimately sell them the perfect day. Now, like I said, my name's Nico. I run Mediafy, a marketing agency for private boat tour and fishing charter operators. We help them consistently get direct bookings on the calendar year round, even during the slow season. Now, I'm not going to pitch you any more than that. I'm not even going to slip it in at the end of this video. I just wanted to tell you that I have been doing this for a few years, working with operators like yourself, helping them get new customers on the boat consistently on a month-to-month basis. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. If you can implement the things that I'm about to show you on this board here digitally, not on the whiteboard this time, you're going to find sales conversion rates going to skyrocket. Closing charters is going to be so much easier, and ultimately things are going to be a lot more efficient on both you and the customer. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, here we are on the digital whiteboard. We're going to go over how to actually sell a charter experience for private boat tours, fishing charters, sunset cruises, eco tours, you name it. Any experience on the water. This approaching conversations, sales conversations, and potential customers like this is going to change the way completely on how you sell your experiences. And it's, like I said, going to make making money a whole lot easier. So starting with pillar one here, you need to diagnose the desired experience, okay? Everyone has a different reason for even looking at a charter in the first place. You need to figure out why that is, all right? It's not necessarily, it's almost actually never going to be the area you're in or the kind of boat you ride, or even most of the features that you might think are important in your charter. It's no concern to most people that are actually looking at coming out with you. So you need to figure out what it is that actually has them looking for a charter in the first place. Okay, so the goal here is to understand where they're coming from, who they are, and what they're looking for before you say a word about what it is that who you are, what it is that you do. They don't necessarily care about that stuff just yet. They only care about certain things, and you need to find out what that is. So here's how you do it. What are they really buying is what we're finding out. And this includes, I'm going to show you some examples here, but this is like including but not limiting to. These are big enough reasons to make people give you a lot of money over the phone or through text messages even without ever seeing your face or your boat. May you say the right things at the right times. And so that's things like family memories, couples trips, birthday celebrations, proposals. Maybe they have kids that they want to, experience like some cool wildlife for the first time. If you have dolphins in the area, that's most likely something that will be very intriguing to families with children, only if those children or even anyone in that family wants to see dolphins. If they don't mention anything about dolphins, do not start saying anything about dolphins. They didn't ask. And so you have to find out, if they just want to have a relaxing, time at a sandbar and, kick back and drink. Maybe they don't want all the activities that you have to offer. They just want to relax. Maybe they want to the thing with fishing is I know people are looking for certain types of fish sometimes, and depending on your area, you might have an advantage when it comes to these kinds of things. But even for fishing charters, you need to also find out why it is they're even looking at a fishing charter in the first place. Are they a family in town just looking to experience a new location, and they're like experienced anglers or something like that? Whatever the reason is, you need to find out why, and then I'll tell you and I'll show you what to do with the reason once you find out what it is they're actually looking for, why they want a charter in the first place, what kind of day they're looking for. You're going to be able to do something with that a bit later, which I'll show you, but it could be a relaxing sunset cruise, whatever. What you don't want to do, okay, what most operators get wrong here is, like I said, pitching before they understand. So sending the price or any details about the charter before they ask or anything like that. Explaining, like I said, paragraphs, long lists, reading, God forbid you're reading off one and or sending them like one that's clearly, written out. This is like the last thing you want to do when you're selling experiences to people, okay? So again, don't pitch before you understand them, okay? So instead of doing these things, explaining the packages, the price too early, things like that, what you need to do is ask better questions, all right? Neuro-emotional persuasion questions. That's what NEPQ stands for here. It's something I learned a while ago from a mentor who makes a lot of money online through sales. And not sales for boat charters by any means, but people all buy for the same reasons. And once you understand that, and once you're able to ask certain questions, emotional ones, or neuro-emotional questions is what they call them, which are essentially questions that bring emotion out of people and get them to tell you things that are very important to them, which you can then use to leverage the sale and, give them an experience that they actually want. And this is nothing nefarious, or this isn't, a bad thing to do to people. If you can actually understand what it is someone's actually looking for, then you can proceed to give them what it is they're actually looking for. Who all is coming? What kind of day are you guys looking for? Are you guys looking for more of a relaxing sandbar kind of day, kick back, relax, food and drinks, or maybe something a little more active like snorkeling, dolphin watching, exploring, whatever it is you have to offer? And, for fishing charters, this question might not apply so much because it's going to be pretty adventurous no matter what, but you maybe want to ask them, what kind of fish are they looking to catch, or do they have any experience with fishing? Because whatever they answer with that experienced with fishing kind of thing, is if they do have experience, you can tell them why that's a really good thing with your charters. And if they don't have experience, you can tell them also why that's a really good thing with your charters because XYZ. So the questions are very important. What kind of day are you looking for? Is this what special occasion is a big one? If you can find out why people are booking a charter, maybe it doesn't even have to be very special. Maybe, like I said, it's just a family in town looking to have a good time. But if you can find out what the occasion is, that's very important. Like a birthday, maybe they have a grandmother in town who's never explored the area and they really want her to. If those key things like that, whatever the occasion is, the primary motive for actually looking for the charter in the first place, if you can figure that out, that's going to be massive leverage when it comes time to pitch. And I'll show you how to do that later, like I said. Are kids coming? Because kids obviously are very important to parents. And so if you do and you can find out that they have kids, and most people will tell you that by themselves, granted, but if they don't, you can ask them that. And once you do find out that people have kids, you can definitely pitch your service or your charter as a very kid-friendly, kids are going to have a great time, but you guys are also going to have a great time because we can do XYZ. You know what I mean? So kids are important, not just because they're there, but because they have very significant meaning to the people who are booking the charter, the parents, the ones who are spending the money. And so making the charter or selling to the kids without them even being there is massive for parents and people like that to hear. So key thing here is the best questions control the sale. The same thing applies again in all sales, and especially for selling experiences. Okay, if they're asking you what it is you guys do and where do you guys ride out of and what is all this, I'm not saying you have to tell them all that stuff when you start. You don't want to pitch them without figuring out what it is they're looking for. But you do have to ask questions. So don't just do nothing. Ask questions. When people are coming into the business expressing interest, ask questions. If there's one thing to take from pillar 1, it's the importance of questions, okay? So on to pillar 2, which is building certainty before you actually pitch them. Basically, you need to make sure that they understand that you're someone that would be a good fit for them before they even talk to you and as they're talking to you, if that makes sense. Before you even tell them, this is perfect, they should already kind of know that. And the way you do this is you want to make them feel understood, obviously, and you can do this from the outside. This is what I mean, what I was talking about earlier with the first impressions. Some things to help with the marketing side of things in your first impression with people is you want to show key things that are very intriguing to people, especially with the charters, the type of charters that you run. If you run private charters, which you should, if you're watching this video, I think you do, you definitely want to hit on the fact that your charters are very private and customizable, tailored to the group, not telling people what it is exactly. You want to give, what's included and what you guys can do on the outside of your business, but you don't want to tell them and make it seem in any way that that's all you guys do. If there's one thing you want to lean more towards, it's that we can do anything and we don't even really do anything specific, rather than here's what we do, here's where we go, here's what we ride, here's all the details. Because when people just start seeing details, then they start making decisions, and that's a really big problem when it comes to your first impression and the marketing you're doing. Is if you're letting people make decisions on whether or not they buy your charter before they reach out to you, then that's a big problem, because then you have no leverage. And unless you have just the most dominant page, it's not even possible. You can only make one good page for one specific kind of person, someone looking for a bachelorette or a birthday party or something like that, but you can't fit everyone's needs all into one. That's why you need to be somewhat vague in your marketing and just hit on key things, like the fact you're private, very customizable, everything's going to be tailored to their group, and you're ultimately going to give them a premium experience, and it's going to be very easy to go about. If you're making things like that more clear online, then you're going to have a lot more people expressing interest in the business, and then you're going to have a lot more leverage, because you can then ask questions. And then another thing you want to have in check is your social proof and your reviews. If you don't have any, you should definitely focus on getting these, because this is massive leverage in the tourism industry in general. Is, you know, proof of concept, social proof, reviews, people making it clear that they've interacted with you and have had a good time. I think you know what reviews are, but while I know you can't control what necessarily people say in their reviews, you somewhat can in the way you deliver the experience to them. But, you know, if you have the ability, and if you can put certain testimonials in certain places, ones that stand out very much to customers or potential ones are reviews that display emotional outcomes, family memories, proposals. I know I keep saying this proposals thing. I know they're uncommon unless you specialize in them. If you can ever get someone proposing on your boat, capitalize off that. Not that proposals are really that important though. Like, I'm just saying it would help. And then the next thing you want to do is make sure you have some sort of low friction inquiry. You know, if you have your prices and the ability for people to book and make a decision with you before they even reach out to you, then they have no reason to reach out to you. And I think that's a bit of a problem. So you want to use things like forms, surveys, calendar checks, you know what I mean? Get people's interest, aka like get a lead through with their information and maybe some details you want to know about what they're looking for. If you don't have many charters, or you're just trying to get more on the calendar, which I presume is a lot of people watching this video, definitely do not show your prices and calendars online. Use a low friction inquiry with some sort of form, survey, or calendar check. You can even get creative with this and, you know, have people like build their own custom itinerary, but it's really just some sort of like lead capture device, like a form or survey or something like that. And then you can have them fill out some certain information, like they're building an itinerary, but in reality they're just giving you information so that you can reach out to them. You know, a whole bunch of different like lead magnets or whatever you want to use or call them, you know. But essentially something that doesn't require any commitment, like paying money. That's why I don't like those calendars and live payments on websites, because they can decide. They just want to be able to do something easy that somewhat pushes them or makes them feel like they're going to get more, they're going to get something out of it. That's important. So whenever you have like a form or survey or calendar check, make sure it's not just that, like you're telling them what that form or survey or calendar check is for, whether that's to check availability, build their own custom itinerary, or even just, you know, get a free quote. I mean, that's the basic one out of the three, but you can, you know, be creative and come up with new things. And the information you collect, you want to be collecting key things that, you know, can save you a bit of friction in the sales process by just having them tell you it before they reach out to you. Obviously low commitment things that people, if anything, when they're giving this information, they might feel like they're moving more towards something that they're not necessarily going to get, like the exact price and availability or something like that, whatever you might be offering. You know what I mean? The information you want to collect on these forms, surveys, calendars, whatever, are things like their group size, their date, obviously, how long they want to go out for, potentially even, you have to be strategic with how you ask these things, but potentially even their intent, you know, why is it they're looking for a charter? What's the special occasion, for example? You can ask things like that, and it can give you some leverage, but anyway, you have to find this out anyway, so it depends on whether or not, you can try testing it and asking it before they reach out to you, but I've found more success, I'll be honest, asking afterward. This is optional. And then obviously you want to make sure there's just no pressure to reach out, you know, saying things like making it clear what will happen once they take this action, this low commitment action of yours. Like, you'll be sent confirmation details with availability upon, you know, like submission or something like that. Whatever you want to do to make it look and sound like, all right, I'm just filling in a couple buttons right here and I'm going to quickly get what I'm looking for, you know. And then ultimately here, no pressure gains trust. So like this low commitment action here is really going to have people just ever so slightly moving towards trusting you, because they see that, you know, you're able to give them something without necessarily taking anything from them. And so it's just a small little action and the first impression, the marketing stage, that kind of helps once it comes time for the sale. And then moving into pillar 3 here, okay, once interest is generated. Now this video wasn't meant to show you how to generate interest necessarily. Those were some tips on how to make it easier to generate interest with the marketing you do, but obviously you can't just throw a form or a calendar on your website and expect more people to start reaching out. But assuming you have interest getting generated from some ways or in some way or another, then it's time to sell the perfect day, all right? So the goal here is to reflect their vision, all right? Everything that you've asked them, the information you've gotten from them, what it is they're looking for, what kind of day they're looking at, why they're even looking at a charter in the first place. You need to not start dumping a huge amount of information on them, giving a generic package explanations, reading off features. You keep telling people the same thing that they've seen and heard everywhere else, you can almost guarantee they're going to tell you that all right, sounds good. We'll check with the group and get back with you later. And then the group, they probably do check with the group actually. And then they get to the group and they're like, dang, everyone's offering the same thing. I mean, none of these people even look different. Who do we go with? Like, that's what they're asking. That's what they're telling each other, because this is what you guys are doing, or a lot of people. Sorry, I don't mean to accuse anyone. But if you are, it's no worries, you know. It works, but there's something that works a lot better, all right? And that's reframing their vision to them. Everything they've told you, all the questions you've asked them, now that you know why it is they're looking for a charter in the first place and exactly the kind of day they're looking for, you need to reframe this back to them with the way you pitch them. And the way you do that here is going to be saying things like, perfect, that's exactly what we're best at, or awesome, that's actually our most common, request, and it's exactly what we do best, like, oh, I didn't mean to make that rhyme, actually. You should probably start saying that. Aside from that, you want to basically reframe their vision with the utmost confidence that exactly what they're looking for is what you can provide to them. And if you don't make that clear by starting off immediately saying perfect or awesome or that's great actually, because this is exactly what we specialize in, or this is exactly what we do, or that's what we're best at, things like that, this is how you always need to be starting off, your pitch. Essentially, the first time you start opening your mouth about yourself and your business, it needs to be starting off with the mood of this phrase right here. It doesn't have to be like this, but it needs to start off like that, if you understand what I'm saying. So then you tell them the price. So once you tell them, perfect, that's exactly what we're best at, you can pull you up to some clear water sandbars, park up, you guys can drink, relax, have fun, play music, whatever it is they want to hear, and then have them literally picturing the day in that conversation. And then once they're literally not even listening to you, they're just imagining themselves laying out on the sandbar or reeling in a massive grouper, that's when you hit them with the price. That is when, once you've created the certainty, you have not been yapping or shoving anything down their throat the whole time. You've just been having a genuine, honest conversation with them, asking questions, figuring out why it is they actually want to charter in the first place. Once you have them imagining and vividly picturing the experience in their mind, because you don't just say perfect, that's what we're best at. You say, most groups your size, we typically take out and do XYZ, and they feel like XYZ, and it's always this good because of this. Whatever it is, you have to figure out, and you have to practice a bit, obviously, and get comfortable with the type of business you're running and what to say to certain people. It does vary, but once they're doing that, once they have this idea in their mind and it's all sounding nice and good, then you hit them with the price. That's when you tell them, after they've pictured their perfect day, how much it's going to cost them. And the way you pitch your price too is, there's nice ways to pitch the price, obviously, not necessarily like discounting or anything like that. I do not recommend that whatsoever. That just, as devalues what it is you're offering. And if you can sell something for cheaper than what you normally sell it for, then why do you even normally sell it for that price? Like, are you even worth that much? Discounts is not the way to make them picture their perfect day, or even pitch the price in general. Once they're picturing their perfect day, tell them how much it's going to cost them. And if you can add certain things on, like no taxes, no fees on top, or things like that, or if you can give them some little certainty as to why that price is good, but not without not without justifying it either. You do not want to justify your price, but you do want to tell them, like, so the total is going to be X dollars. That includes everything X, and nothing else, and like no additional fees on top, if that's the case, or whatever it is. I highly recommend pitching the total price to people as well. Just a little thing about when you do pitch the price, pitching prices, the total amount of prices, and telling people that there's nothing else more than that, and they have the certainty that there's not going to be anything else, rather than saying the price of the charter is X dollars for the boat, but then it's X dollars for the captain, and then it's X dollars for tax. Once people have to start doing addition and start hearing numbers, and they have then lost focus of the vision that they were just picturing in their mind about the perfect day here, that's when you lose everything. And so I really like telling people the total price of what something's going to come out to. If you do charge tax, if you do have the boat and captain separately, that's fine, but bundle it all together and tell them the price as one. And then you can say things like, and that covers everything, X what they're looking for, other X that they're looking for, boat, fuel, captain, whatever it is, and there's nothing else on top of that. When you can say a price like that, their mind is a lot more at ease, and they hear one number and they're like, okay, considering what I just had in my mind, which was picturing the perfect day, as you just did with them on the call or the text message, that number sounds pretty reasonable, let's do it. They have, if anything, a couple questions, but nobody is going to be objecting the fact that you can provide them that experience. May you run through this whole process with absolute confidence. And key here is that you reframe their vision with like absolute certainty. You have to obviously sound confident in what you're saying, but that'll come with practice and you'll get used to it. The way you're going to be able to do that is by making sure people are certain that you can give them that experience they're looking for. And they're not going to be needing to check with the group anymore because they know what the group's looking for and they know why they're looking for a charter. And so if what you just told them sounds good to them, they'll do it. So over here, you see me hovering in pillar 4 because I'm getting a little antsy. These videos kind of wear me out. I don't know. I might have like ADHD or something, but you want to turn questions into selling opportunities, all right? So after you pitch them and after you tell them the price, they're most likely going to have some questions. It's very important that the questions they ask you, you turn into selling opportunities. Every single one. As simple as things like, for example, people will ask, very common, what kind of boat do you ride? Do not tell them just the kind of boat you ride. You can, you want to, but it's very important that you include the fact that your boat is a smoother ride compared to most X. And if it's not, then you need to find other key selling points of it, like maybe very comfortable seating, plenty of space for your group of X amount of people in their group. Things about the boat that would make their experience better. But do not, for the love of God, just tell them what kind of boat you ride. And the brand doesn't matter either. I would literally just tell them you ride a 30-foot center console or a 23-foot Tytoon that has very comfortable seating, plenty of space for their group, and it's going to be a really smooth ride over to X location you're going to do X and have a great time. Always reiterating and making things selling opportunities like that. The next one, where is pickup, You could just tell them you ride out of John Doe Pier and send them the address, or you can tell them you ride out of John Doe Pier, which is a very convenient location, most likely, depending on where you're at on the island, in the area, whatever your area is. Even if you don't know where they're at, you want to tell them, like, yeah, we ride out of here. It's usually a very convenient access to, the area, the main area you're in, you know what I mean? You want to say things like that, even when you're just telling them where you ride out of, because every question they have just needs to be one more opportunity you can leverage to tell them why this is just going to be the easiest and best process you've ever experienced. Now, if you know that they're staying far from you or something like that, you can still use it as a selling opportunity, even if they're not close to you. You know what I mean? You can say something like, so we ride out of John Doe Pier, which, I think is going to be a good X to X minutes from where you're located. Most groups typically like making the drive over here because, X, and then key selling point in your business. That's a key thing. That's a great thing to do is, if even someone's saying, oh, it's a little far, or they're far from you because they told you, you can tell them like, yeah, so we ride out of the John Doe Pier, which is probably a good X to X minutes from you. But I'll be honest, most groups don't even mind making that drive over to us. We've gone out with plenty of whoever they are from that area, and they didn't mind making the drive over here. They said it was way worth it, but totally understand if that's not, within distance for you guys, Something like that. You can use even bad, questions that you don't necessarily have the best answers to your advantage. What do you guys do? And you already know, hopefully by now, what you shouldn't be answering this with, but it's this right here. If they ask you this question before you have the opportunity to know what they're looking for, because if you do know what they're looking for and then they ask you like, so how do the charters typically look? They shouldn't ask you that. Actually, they won't ask you that. May you pitch them the right way and you tell them that this is exactly what we can do for you. But when people do ask this question, what do you guys do? Don't send them a list of features. Make sure they understand that the charter is very private and customized, tailored to their group. If you run a set, strict schedule charter, if you do run eco tours where you follow the same route every time and people don't have the choice, semi-private and public charters is more so what I'm getting at. I'll be honest, you have to take a slightly different approach. This still works for your types of business, obviously. It mainly is for private boat tour and fishing charters that can customize and tailor groups to people. But even if you had a semi-private or large or public group charters, you can still use a lot of these systems and methods here to make selling the experience a lot better. And then in pillar 5 here, you want to make sure there's always a clear next step. So from the beginning of the sales process, obviously, like you're asking questions and the clear next step is for them to answer those questions. But, especially after the pitch and once the questions start getting asked, you want to make sure there's a clear next step given as soon as possible once you have an opportunity. So like if you answer a question and they're like, okay, all right, and like if they don't ask another question right away, or you can tell they're like, on the fence, that's when you need to make it clear on what can we do next. Now, like, it all sounds good, obviously they haven't objected the price, and they're thinking about it. Make sure they know what they even can do next. You don't want to just keep waiting for them to ask you questions. So this is a foundation across all the pillars, is just making sure there's always a clear next step. So that's why you're asking questions right away, and we're not letting them ask us questions. Like, we must lead this conversation from the very beginning, or else they're going to end up getting this, like, the same information out of us that every other charter is giving them, and then they're not going to be able to make a good decision. So clear next step. And so this is by making sure you never say things like, so let me know if that works for you. If you're talking through messages, never say something like, let me know. You want to say things along the lines of like, so if that sounds good, I can help you lock in your spot right now. Or, if that all sounds good, I'm happy to help you confirm that on the calendar, or something like that. Something that pushes towards the sale, but it also isn't something like, let's lock in your spot. I know I just kind of jotted this down here. You don't want to necessarily say, so let's lock in your spot, because then it's like they don't have a choice almost. You want to say, so if that sounds good, or if that all sounds good, or to me it does, but if it sounds like something the group's going to enjoy, what do you say? Should we get this on the calendar? Something like that. You want to direct them and make sure they have a clear next step on what to do next. Always lead them and basically ask them like, sounds good, without basically saying like, all right, let's do it, or should we do it? We can even say like, all right, should we get you in for 2 p.m. today or something, or 4 p.m. today or tomorrow, or whatever like that. It doesn't have to be necessarily like your spot or your date. You can give them the exact time if it's, sometime soon. So here, direction creates momentum. All right. Final note is, you are not selling a charter. All right. It does not matter where you go. It doesn't matter your boat. It doesn't matter what you guys do. Forget you even run a boat charter for now. You are selling memories, certainty, emotional outcomes, and you're doing it all with the uttermost confidence. And ultimately, you're selling the perfect day. Forget that you run a boat charter. Forget that you even own a boat. Understand that people are looking for something specific. The only reason they even want to do something with a boat and on the water is because there are certain underlying conditions, things that are true within their life and their group, that are making them want to even go out on this boat in the first place. So you need to find out what that is. That might be family bonding time, a romantic couples day, a relaxing sandbar day with friends that haven't seen each other in a while. You can get really deep with people's motives onto why they actually want to book a charter, but you don't have to, because understand this: people are looking for a good time. They want to make sure after giving you their money, they are not going to regret going out with you, and in fact, they're going to receive the opposite experience, which is one that they won't forget, one that they genuinely enjoyed, and one that can stay in their memories for a while to come. And the only way that's going to happen is if you understand what it is they're looking for, and then you deliver it to them. But you won't have any problem with that. You guys know how to give people a good time. You know how to do what you do. Now it's time to figure out what it is they want you to do, and then do it. So hopefully that all helps. Sell the perfect day to people, and yeah, have fun.